I got to say, I was ready for Giannis to win me over after he had that Tuesday, Thursday last week against Philly, against Brooklyn. I got excited about, you know what? He could steal this. His stats are amazing. I think he should get some real credit for the year after a championship year, how fucking hard that guy plays. They had some weird stuff, not a perfect team. Lopez was out most of the year. Like I started talking myself into it. And then they kind of just started throwing games away, including today. I want my MVP to care about, like, not be afraid of Brooklyn. I didn't like that they just kind of punted the 2 seed.
Wait, that's part of your calculus of this?
No, I'm saying I thought he had a chance to steal it, but he obviously didn't care. And there was some momentum there for him that just kind of dissipated. And I think Jokic grabbed it by the balls probably 4 or 5 days ago. And it seems like this is a wrap. Who do you have?
Let me take you through my maze here. I'll make it quick.
Great. What kind of maze are we talking? Is this like a Lost episode? Is this like Dexter? What kind of TV show am I entering?
What's up with that smoke? Did they ever come to the conclusion? What was that
smoke monster? Thing? Is Smoke Monster going to be here?
If I'm being totally honest about all of it, like, we all have little biases in there, right? Like little things that we think are important. So it's not just straight stats. I'd like to think I watch a lot of basketball, so I have a good sense of what's going on. Doesn't mean I know everything. Doesn't mean I get everything right. Then I think the story is always a big influence on the voting, but I was like, I don't want to be part of the story because I think there's 2 things that are clear. I probably went into this trying to find a way to get Embiid to vote because I love him. All right. Not that I don't love Jokic, not that I don't love Giannis. I think he's like the one guiding light through all the Sixers bullshit over all of these years. And in the aftermath of Simmons tanking this season for a million different reasons, and one that we have to be sensitive about, for Simmons camp to like complain to ESPN that Simmons didn't criticize Embiid after the Toronto series.
Yeah.
Just because Embiid put his arms up because he couldn't believe in a playoff game that Simmons didn't dunk when they should have. You know what I mean? Like Joel's been the guy that's got it right. He's the guy that's figured it out. He stayed healthier than I ever thought. But that's not really what this award is about. All right. So if I was admitting a pre-bias to like which way would I lean in a tie, it's probably because I'd really love to see Joel Embiid get an MVP. Then there was this stretch of Giannis where he was playing against Brooklyn, the Philly win where he has the block. And I'm going, do you actually think anybody's better than him right now? Because it doesn't feel that way. Now, yes, with Durant's scoring arsenal and the last couple minutes of a playoff game, the shots that Durant can get you, I think, are beyond anybody else in the league. And that's why I'm still like a little sensitive to the idea that would I still actually take Giannis over Durant? Not to start a franchise because Giannis is always healthier, right? But I'm like, if I'm going who I just think is the best, it might be Giannis. And then I asked myself, if Giannis hadn't won one, Giannis would win in a landslide probably this year because the voters would say, let's finally get it to Giannis. So am I holding previous success against Giannis the way we've done that in the MVP?
Now you're talking my language. I love you got to throw out the previous results. I had this week or two where I go, I think I might vote Giannis. And then I came through everything again with Jokic. And I've watched so many of those Denver games. Not to say I haven't watched the other guys a million times. Jokic does fucking everything for a bad team. Yeah.
And if you want to get into the semantics of 6 seed versus a 4 seed, like you realize Sixers people are going, you can't vote for a 6 seed for MVP. It's like you're a fucking 4 seed and you're like a game ahead of them. If Embiid had 65 wins, okay, different conversation. If Giannis had 60 wins and they were like a Phoenix in the East, different conversation. The records are close enough that you can throw out any of the seeding talk. Jokic does everything for a bad Denver team. They all have similar records, and Jokic is going to complete the first 2,000 point, 1,000 rebound, 500 assist season while having a usage rate that still holds up with a true shooting percentage that has only been doubled by, or only been accomplished by Seth twice, Durant, Adrian Dantley, and Barkley. The entire Jokic package and the record being similar and his stuff with him, I don't know how you vote for anybody else.
You're preaching to the choir. I mean, it's funny that we went through the same Giannis, kind of left that door open for him at some point. I really like Embiid too. I did a whole 15-minute thing at the top of my pod like 2 months ago about what a shame it was that they were going to waste this great story with this dumb Ben Simmons situation. And then they addressed it. and they got a guy who kind of sent them sideways. Didn't really help them that much. Look, sometimes we just have a couple guys who had great seasons. And I think this has turned into, if you don't pick Embiid, that means you're against Embiid or whatever. And I just feel like Jokic had a harder burden than Embiid did this season. He lost his best two teammates. He played with a 2 through 12 that was probably bottom 7 or 8 in a 2 through 12 if we're doing the 2 through 12 draft. Where's that Denver 2 through 12 going in the 2 through 12 draft?
There's one other player with like an above average PER. I think there's 0 players with a positive net rating or something like that.
Right.
And so then you could be like, well, wait a minute. So Embiid's going to lose because the rest of the Nuggets aren't as good. And you're like, well, this is kind of where we land back on most valuable. But then in a vacuum, when I see the Embiid arguments, like, okay, the last center to win the scoring title, you're not going to vote for that guy. You're like, okay, but you don't get to have all the Embiid arguments in a vacuum when you have stuff like Jokic, who's going to finish with an average of 27, 13, and 7. That's never been done before. It's never been done before. And it's not Westbrook bullshit. Okay. Because we'll go traditional number on you. These are real numbers in a guy that has no help, and he's still incredibly efficient.
And eye test wise, it holds up every time you watch them. It's always unbelievable how much he does. And I don't understand why he doesn't get tired. There's a couple games. There's that one stretch last month when they had was 6 games in 9 nights. And it was the first time he started to look a little beaten up. And
they lost to Golden State at home during that stretch. They were hitting a weird.
Yeah, he's beaten up because everybody's just hitting him with the kitchen sink, and he's the point guard, and he has to protect the rim. And, he's playing with these guys. The crazy thing about his assist number, because I saw some people are trying to discredit it, where it's like he's averaging 8 assists a game, but some of them are handoffs. Well, if we're going to start discrediting him, what about all the assists that he didn't get because he was playing with a bunch of role guys, right? The fact that he wasn't playing with Jamal Murray, who probably would have been worth 2 assists a game for him. I do think there's a world where he could be a triple-double average guy. And I don't care about triple-doubles, but I do think there could be a 25, 13, 10 in his future. I was looking back at everybody I voted for the last 6 years. And in 2019, I voted Embiid over Jokic. Last year, I voted Jokic over Embiid for first team, second team. But Jokic he's put in the work now. We're talking 2019 second team, 2020 second team, and then 2 first teams, one this year, one maybe this year, one last year. But he's putting in the work. I still feel like there's a level for him to go where he might even be a little bit better, which is crazy to say. But as his teammates get better, I think he's going to get a little bit better. That's why, to me, he's the MVP. He's doing this with a below average supporting cast. And I think if you switch the 2 guys, I do not think Denver's record is as good. And you could talk me into Philly's record being as good. And that's it.
If Philly had a much better record than Denver, then maybe you can get me there,
Right. Because they're 10 games higher.
And it still would be tough. But you can point to the analytics, you can point to the traditional stuff, you can watch all of these guys as much as I feel like I have and have a really good grasp on who's what. And I just look, it's so unfortunate for Embiid because what's happening is that we have these 3 guys all doing something so incredibly special that everyone's individual arguments are historic and overwhelming. But that's not the way it works. I don't like when we'll go back and look at results and you'll say, well, how could this have not happened? Or how come this guy didn't happen with this guy? And you're like, okay, but are you just saying it as blanket? Or are you putting it in context with what also was happening around him? So they'll look back. We could go back in 5 years and be like, I can't believe Embiid didn't win the MVP. It's like, okay, but are you going to ignore the other incredible stories that we also had that season? And that's also, the whole point. That's the whole point of winning it for your season.
Also, this was an awesome Embiid season. It shouldn't be denigrated if he's number 2 in MVP instead of number 1. He answered every single question we ever had about him. He stayed way more durable than I ever thought. He destroys any team that's undersized, like in a real crazy Shaq late 90s, early 2000s way. And he's good on both ends. He's a great teammate. And this is it's all a win. And sometimes there's just a guy who was a smidge better. Like you go back to 2017, I voted for Harden that year. Westbrook run. They were 47-35. Houston was 55-27. And Harden's stats were pretty much the same as Westbrook's stats. It's just people got excited about triple doubles and what he meant to the franchise. There was a little bit of the Jokic argument.
We didn't
he did
understand
for this
right.
team.
But we said this before. We didn't understand usage as well because
No,
that's the single highest usage season in the history of the NBA. So then you look at it that way and you go, oh, all right.
Well, then Zach voted for Kawhi that year. They had 61 wins. Kawhi had the third worst case out of 3. That one never sat right to me because the eye test wasn't there. Mm-hmm. The eye test is there with Embiid and it's there with Giannis. If you catch them on the right night, you're like, these guys are, those 3 guys I thought were head and shoulders from an eye test, ass-kicking standpoint over everybody except for Durant. From just watching night to night and being like, holy shit. And those are the 4 best guys in the league. And they're, Giannis is at his peak. Jokic is pretty much there. And Embiid will probably never have a better season than this season. So to me, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I think this was just a great MVP season. It really was. And if somebody's like, Embiid's my guy, the Simmons thing was fucked up. He did everything for that team. He kept them together and blah, blah. Like, I'd be like, all right, I get it. I hear your argument. But for me, it's Jokic by a hair.